Today we are going to learn about the porifera, which is a kind of metazoan, and we'll talk about what that term means today. As I'm going, I will be using a highlighting tool just to keep track of where I am and to emphasize certain key points. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. This is in your ByQuest book. It's the very first page if you want to find it later. So the metazoans. The animal kingdom is one of the 5 major groups in which all living things are classified. Members of the animal kingdom are multicellular and separate from the unicellular forms which are in the kingdom Protista. The multicellular organisms are identified by the name metazoa. In metazoans, each of the many cells in the organism are developed to perform different tasks with specialized skills. This type of organization is called division of labor. A group of specialized cells can perform their jobs more efficiently than a single cell that would be expected to carry out many tasks alone. Typical activities are associated with organisms identified as animals. An animal is capable of movement or locomotion. The locomotion makes it possible for an animal to gather its own food, since it is not capable of making food for itself. This method of consumption identifies it as a heterotroph, not an autotroph. Each animal has a particular body shape and structure associated with its body plan. In addition, an animal selects a suitable habitat in which it can survive and reproduce. We discussed a little bit about different types of body shapes and body plans in yesterday's class, so you can just keep some of those things in mind as you're reading about the metazoans. So the porifera, the sponges. These are the lowest or the most primitive members of the animal kingdom, and they are known as Phylum Porifera. This phylum includes the sponges which live in either freshwater or marine habitats. However, the majority of sponges live in marine or saltwater environments. The sponges are not capable of movement, and they remain stationary as they attach themselves to rocks in their water environments. In the text, they use the term sessile to refer to organisms that do not move and that are stationary. The simple existence of a sponge provides a very efficient method for gathering food. Water current from their environment carries food through openings or pores and into canals in the side of their body where the food is digested. This simple method of gathering food is referred to as filter feeding. The water current is produced by specialized cells with beating flagella, which are like little tails, which direct the flow of water into the internal body chamber. Other specialized cells, called amoebocytes, line the canals and cavity where the food is digested. And I'm just going to take a moment to go to the next page here, where we can take a look at this diagram. We'll go back and forth a little bit. Whoops. Let's see if we can get this back on. And I'm just going to change my tool. So here we have a simple sponge. This shows the external view, and in this one they've cut away a section of the outside to give you a view of the inside. Here's the base. Here are the pores that allow water to go in from the outside environment into the central part of the sponge. Can come in through all of these different pores. And here are the cells with the flagella, these little lines, squigglies here. The movement of those flagella creates the current, and it brings water both in and then pushes it out through the opening here. Now we'll come back to this in a moment, but we'll just go back over here to continue. So we're here. The sponges have one of the most simple body plans of the metazoan animals. Since they lack symmetry, they don't have bilateral or radial symmetry, and the body cells are not organized into tissues. The body of the sponge is hollow and often appears vase-shaped with tiny pore openings which cover the body, as we saw in the diagram. The base of the sponge is attached to a rock, while the opposite end, which is free-floating, has an opening called the osculum. The sponge body has 2 layers of cells with a jelly-like substance between them. The outer layer of cells serves as a protective covering, while the inner layer contains flagella for producing a constant flow of water through the body cavity. Between the outer and inner layers of the body cells are deposits of calcium taken from the water that produce sharply pointed needles called spicules. These are seen with 3 points in the diagram, and we'll take a look at that in one moment. In marine sponges, support is provided by additional fibers called spongin. These structures protect as well as strengthen the sponge and help maintain its shape. I'm just going to highlight protect and strengthen and maintain its shape. Why don't we just take another look at that diagram for a moment, and you can see I'm going to use a different color. Here is the spicules, and on the outside of this they just look like pointy little things. Here you can see sort of more of the 3-pronged shape. If I draw one over here, it looks kind of like this. And they're all over the place here. And you can also see the collar cells. They look like this, and they have the flagella like this, and there's some here, and here, and all of the way around. from the outside of the sponge, they're not visible. But the other thing, the osculum, the opening, is visible here on the outside and here on the internal view. Here's another spicule labeled over here. So we'll just go back and read a bit about reproduction in sponges. All right. I'm gonna switch back to my yellow highlighter. So we're here. In addition to carrying food, water entering the sponge also takes dissolved oxygen into the cells, which all animals need oxygen in order to do cellular respiration. As the water leaves the body of the sponge, it removes waste gases in the form of carbon dioxide, the product of cellular respiration, and any undigested food materials. Sponges do not have tissue or organs, since they are not as specialized as higher forms of animal life. Cells are used to reproduce the sponge, in addition to the specialized cells and body processes previously mentioned. Sponges use both sexual and asexual reproduction. So it talks about sexual reproduction first. They are capable of sexual reproduction. In this case, it consists of the sperm and eggs being produced by the same animal. Since the sponges are stationary, the sperm must travel to neighboring sponges in the colony to carry out fertilization, completing the reproductive process. The newly developed sponges drop to the bottom of the water environment and develop in a different location. Sponges can also reproduce asexually by forming a structure called a bud. Buds are miniature sponges that grow from the base of the parent sponge. These new buds remain attached to the parent sponge for some time, but in some instances break away to live independently. In addition, sponges have the capability of replacing any missing or injured parts of their body through a process called regeneration. So, if a sponge were cut into many small pieces and placed back into its environment, it is possible that each of the cut pieces could grow to form a new sponge. Marine sponges are collected from the ocean in nets and then left to dry in the air to produce commercial sponges. As the body tissue decays, the fibers of the animal's skeleton remain behind. The remaining skeleton of the body can be used as a household sponge. The spaces which remain absorb water, making it useful for cleaning and washing. Natural sponges are more expensive to buy than artificial sponges. Can you think about why this might be true? We will now take one last look at the diagram here, just to illustrate that we have this illustrates the base. Imagine that it's on top of a rock here, and this is the adult, and here we have the bud. So this is like the baby growing off of the adult right there. And that is all for sponges for today. So please refer to your Edmodo post for the rest of your instructions.